don't know if I'll be able to reach across the table, but cheers anyway. Let's give it a start. There you go.
Cheers.
It might be water.
Should have done this in the evening.
No, it might have been slightly too rambling. Well, it's a great pleasure to see you, because I mean, we've known each other for quite some time.
Yes.
So it's the first time we've been face to face in probably about 40 years.
Yeah.
So I'd just like to say, how have the last 40 years been for you?
Probably not as good as they've been for you. No, they've been fine.
Yeah.
Apart from a couple of illness episodes, which
Yeah.
you know I've managed to get around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I've mentioned in the past with other people is that we had a school folk club.
Yes.
You know, and people are quite amazed by this. I mean, I kind of became interested in folk music at 15, and I think you were a few years older than me.
Yeah.
And it was like...
Very politely put, Tony.
Yeah, so well, that's it. I can be polite. But how did that really come about, the school folk club?
I don't know. I didn't go to that school.
Oh, but you heard about it?
Oh God, yes. I knew a lot of the participants, such as Roby and Les Wilkinson and myself.
Yeah.
Basically through coming to the Marsden Inn Folk Club.
Right.
And in other settings in South Shields.
Yeah.
No, I went to school in Newcastle.
Right. It just shows how memory goes, because I had you placed in that place and walking down the corridors.
Well, I had a big photograph of me put at the back.
Yeah. Oh, right. Oh, well, I mean...
And it was a great initiative, and a lot of the people I mentioned came out of it who went on to spend a lot of time performing in the folk world.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's... Now, in retrospect, it was very forward thinking, but folk music was incredibly popular at times, so it was on the television a lot and things like that. So
it was, ironically, I thought it was largely in the northeast and Scotland that it was popular, and London, of course. And I got interested because I watched Hootenanny on TV.
Yeah.
With Ray and Archie Fisher and Julie Felix and Martin Carthy.
Yeah.
And we were just sitting having a chat with a couple of friends and said, oh, you want to come down to Beacon on a Friday?
Right.
Because there's a thing there that's just like that. And that was South Shields Folk Club at the time.
Yeah.
Which was run by Jim Sharp and a guy called John Price.
Yes.
An American lad called Chuck.
Oh, yes, who always did the circle game.
Yeah.
Yeah, sang the circle game.
And I met John Lincoln there.
Oh, yes.
Who was playing the banjo and trying to sing songs. He became much more successful as a fiddler later in life.
Yes, that's right, yeah. Was he called the Phantom Fiddler?
He was indeed.
And that's right, yeah.
And because he kept disappearing.
Right, I just thought it was because he was almost wraith-like. I thought that was where his name came from.
Well, it's probably a combination of things, but the Marsden Rattlers, which I became part of, and there was John Lincoln, Jim Irvin, Jimmy Bainbridge, and myself, and Trevor Sheridan, sorry.
Yeah.
And we were touring around, we were doing a tour of Scotland, and you'd do the gig, and John would disappear, and you'd see him the next night at the next gig.
Right.
Don't know where he'd been.
Nobody thought to ask him?
Probably.
Just not
didn't get an answer. No, so I got involved there going down to the Beacon, and I never actually performed there. And then Jim Sharp announced it was moving to the Marsden Inn on a Sunday.
Uh-huh.
And we started becoming regulars there. And we didn't appreciate it at the time, but the resident singers at South Shields were as good as anybody touring in the country.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, in particular, I suppose, there's Jimmy Irvin, who was like incredibly. He would nurture talent. I mean, I remember always being introduced almost like the child prodigy on the tenor banjo.
Yes.
You know, it'd be like he was, and he's only 16. I don't know whether being only 16 is an actual talent, but
well, that's when I first started as well. After I'd been going for a couple of years, I started singing a few songs, mostly Irish rebel songs, as he did at that time.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Jim Sharp, and I said, would we be able to perform at the folk club as, you know, from the floor singers?
Mm.
And he said, yes, but I'll tell you something. This is what you've got to do. Learn the song, learn the song, sing it till you're sick of it, and then come to the Marsden Inn and sing it.
Right. Good advice.
Yeah, and to this day, I'm a big believer in no sheets of music in front of you. Learn the songs.
I would say, like, as a songwriter, sometimes you're so involved or so besotted with the song that you really want to find out whether it works with people.
Yes.
And sometimes I'll put the piece of paper in front of me, but not very often.
Yeah. Jim was quite right, I felt, that you can't actually perform the song unless you really know it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get into a debate about sort of whether people should or shouldn't.
No.
But as long as people can get up and sing and play, I'm very happy.
Well, as you know, I run a sing around locally.
That's right, yeah, at the Leather Smithy.
Yeah, and it's a lot of people would bring an iPad or some words, and when you're getting in your 70s, I can appreciate why.
It always amazes me, the ingenuity of people bringing a variety of different things to prompt them.
Yes.
You know, so like iPads, iPhones. The first time I thought somebody was just singing to the hand.
Yeah.
It was like this. And I agree. I think if you know the words inside your head, you can put more feeling into them, because you're not. One thing that you're taking away is the reading, you know, because that kind of makes you like do something and you sing down. So really,
look at the audience.
You look at the audience. Although sometimes I find that hilarious as I travel around, because people quite often will have their eyes closed while they're singing, which I know is to like absorb what it is that they're singing. Yeah. But and the atmosphere of the place and the acoustics. You know, yeah. But I kind of go. Sometimes I feel like pulling the face. Crossing my eyes or something in the middle of a song. So that was your like beginnings of playing. Yeah. And I've seen a photograph of you playing the banjo, but I haven't seen you playing a banjo recently. You play the guitar now, don't you?
Yes. In those days, playing the banjo was quite fashionable.
Can you please say that again?
In those days, but not now, playing the banjo was quite fashionable. And if you remember, the basis of the Marsden Rattlers was a Cayley band. Yes. So I was playing Irish tunes in time with Jim Bainbridge playing the melodeon. Yeah. I played the mandolin as well at that time. Right. But my fingers are too knobbly and arthritic now. Oh. So I can just about manage the guitar. Yeah. Oh, you do very well with the guitar. I've watched you play twice now. Yeah. You deliver a fine folk song, my dear. It was Louis Killen, I think, who said the accompaniment should enhance the song, not detract from it. Right. I love these kind of homilies, because in the Pete Seeger Learn to Play the 5-String Banjo, he gave me not personally, but he put in a good bit of advice, which is, don't let other people's playing put you off. Yes, well, all of those things. All of those things, yeah. I mean, you're ferociously proud of your northeastern roots as well. I mean, even though we're here in this beautiful part of Cheshire, I mean, what brought you to this area? At work, as it did with many people. Macclesfield was the headquarters of ICI Pharmaceuticals. My university degree was in physiology and pharmacology. Right. So I ended up coming to Macclesfield to work for ICI Pharmaceuticals. But still kept in touch fiercely with the Northeast. And I'm one of those nice people, Roby, that still supports Newcastle and Sunderland. Yes. Oh, I never followed football at all. Well, people would say
who do you support? And I knew it was either Sunderland or Newcastle. I'd say Newcastle, and it would be like, Biff. So then, next time, God, don't say Sunderland, don't. So, so the next time I'd say, I'll support Sunderland, and it would be like, Biff. And I thought, I don't really like football, to be perfectly honest.
No.
I mean, I love playing it, And
you shouldn't have spent so much time in Ropey's company.
So partisan. I mean, a lot of people are going to know you from the Costa del Folk as well.
Yes,
I mean,
made a lot of friends there.
Yes.
Definitely.
The one question that I want to ask, I mean, I've never been myself, is what's it like singing folk songs in an unfeasibly warm climate?
Fantastic. I was basically brought up like you would be when folk festivals meant camping in a muddy field, 2 miles from the venue, walking through the rain, getting absolutely sodden wet.
And you tell young people today and they don't believe you.
No. And then walking back sodden wet and getting into your tent and going to bed. And I'd stopped going to folk festivals because of this. And I was talking to Reg Muros at a gig up here. And I said, Reg, you were on this Costa del Folk, what's it like? And he said, well, here's how we go. You're in a nice venue, self-contained, beautiful sunshine, very good food, perfect sound, great sight lines, and some of the best artists of the year in the country and from America. Why wouldn't you like it? So I said, I'll give it a go, and we went down to Portugal, the first one, and Reg was playing there, so he kind of showed me around the site. And just really got to enjoy it. In those days, Mike Harding was running most of the stuff and would play till 5 o'clock in the morning every day. And I'd compare shows at 11 the following morning, somehow. And we had some great artists. I mean, a lot of people from the Northeast were involved at that time. The Mighty Doonans were one of the great nights we had down there. And South Shields Folk Club en masse went to Ibiza that year. There was 14 of us from the Marsden.
Right.
Basically watching the Doonans, and then in the bar afterwards, it was like it was in Newcastle or South Shields. Yeah. Because nobody else mattered, I'm sorry.
Not so much as they'll always be in England, they'll always be like a Geordie.
Wherever you go, you're bound to meet a Geordie.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we've had lots of very good sessions. I mean, I'm slightly concerned at the direction it's taken with a few ageing pop stars appearing on the menu now, presumably to try and attract a wider audience.
Right.
But there's a group of us who've been going for a while. We're called the Catacombers, aren't we? And we sing in the catacombs. And there's roughly 25 of us in that category who are the club singers, not the stage performers. And we meet up during the year as well.
Oh, well, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I often think that, like in the 60s and 70s, it was more the social aspect of a folk club that was the attraction.
Yes.
That it was like to meet your friends, whereas now it's more to see somebody. It's not as much the social aspect of it. It was just accepted that you would go to a folk club, whereas now you quite often have to whisper it under your breath, where you're going.
Well, I strongly agree. Part of the attraction when I was 17, 18 was 4 or 5 pints of beer and singing your head off as part of the audience. Yeah. And that was great.
Part of mine was singing rude words.
Oh, well, or listening to others, of course. Especially Jim Irvin.
Yeah, because he lived such a chaste life.
Yeah, but you're right, the social side of it. And we used to meet in the Ship Inn at South Shields and have a session on a Friday night quite often. It was great. Lots of good friends who came out of that. And of course, when I went to university, St Andrews Folk Club
Yeah.
was almost the equal of South Shields, and it had some great singers there.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I did before I sort of like knew I was coming to sort of chat with you is I wrote to quite a lot of our mutual friends and said, what question would you like to ask Nigel?
Oh God.
And this, oh no, they're great. This came from our friend Les Wilkinson. Ask him to talk about the times that you played together in St Andrews with people like Rob Noakes, Jimmy Hutchinson, David Craig, David Stewart, Kenny Brill and Fred Watson.
Oh yes, I forgot about Fred.
Yeah, so tell us.
Pete Shepherd, you forgot him, Les.
Yeah.
Who ran the club.
Can you look into his face there?
Hello, Pete. Well, going up to St Andrews, of course, the first thing I did was seek out the folk club, held at the Star Inn on a Sunday night. Run by Pete Shepherd and Jimmy Hutchison, basically, Jimmy was probably the finest man as a singer that I've encountered. He's phenomenal. Pete Shepherd ran a tight ship, but he invited a lot of people in and encouraged them. And at the time, Rob Noakes, Davy Craig and Artie Trezise were running a club in Cooper. And they said, why don't you come down to Cooper? So I went down to Cooper and had a bit of a sing with them. And to this day, Artie's still a very, very close friend. At the club at St Andrews, Rob Noakes eventually got to get up and sing. He was just a young lad. Well, same age as me by a month.
Yeah.
But Rob sang a couple of Beatles songs, and he sang Rocky Raccoon. And half the audience was going shock horror, and half the audience was in fits of laughter. But what was clear was he was very, very talented. And we then formed a close association, and I said, why don't we swap residents for a couple of evenings?
I think that's always a great idea. I love it when clubs do that.
Yeah. So the Marsden Inn lot came up and did a gig at St Andrews, and we all had a good time.
A little bit of Geordie land in Scotland.
Yeah, and then everybody went back down to Shields, and Jimmy and Rab in particular were very, very popular with the Shields audience. And Rab kept going there repeatedly as his career blossomed. We've all kept in touch. Sadly, I had to go to Rab's funeral in December, where those of us who are still alive really celebrated what Rab was about, and listened to some great songs by some of the people who'd recorded them, like Barbara Dixon and Brooks Williams. Very, very moving day.
I mean, you are a great supporter of like singer-songwriters like Ed Pickford, and you put these songs on your website, on your Facebook page as well.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it that makes you want to sing somebody else's songs? Because I'm going to come and ask you about your own songwriting, but what is it about somebody else's song that draws you to it?
Well, from the Marsden Inn and St Andrews, I was basically brought up singing traditional songs that had survived hundreds of years in some cases. Yeah. And they only did so because they were good songs. They were great to sing because a lot of people knew them. The first singer-songwriter that I would have sung anything from would be Ed Pickford, who, in my mind, is the greatest living singer-songwriter anywhere in the world.
I don't use this often, but definitely touched with a genius in wordplay and tunes.
And such a nice man.
Yes.
I heard some of his funny songs to start with. He had this period when he was writing songs about silly animals, like see a toad across the road and make yourself a friend. Why can't Robert my rabbit be gay? Yeah. And the lonely tortoise. Yeah. And we were in stitches with those. They were very, very clever songs. And then we heard his serious industrial songs as well, about the mining industry. Farewell Johnny Miner, and then the Workers' Song. And this stuff's just magic.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So when I made an album 10 years ago, 3 of the songs on it are from Ed Pickford. The other great songwriter who became very friendly with is George Borofsky, who basically inspired many of the famous bands out of Manchester. And George,
but he's not from Manchester though. George Borofsky, is he?
He was born in Wrexham and was brought up in Manchester. Moved to Macclesfield.
Do you know what? I'm going to have a word with my own researcher. I always thought he was American.
No, not at all. His father and mother were both Polish refugees who were both in concentration camps and got out. George has written songs which have been recorded by many people, including our friend Lisa Mills, who put 3 of them on one of her albums. So there's 2 George Borofsky songs on the album as well, accompanied by George Borofsky, ironically. So he was a great inspiration. I sang some of Rab's songs and still do, but mostly from singer-songwriters. I'm not terribly fond of all the ones who would be household names.
Are you talking like in the pop idiom or within folk?
Well, the crossover end of it.
You don't have to name names.
I'm not going to, because Bob Dylan will kill me.
Right. Well, I mean...
No, I do actually like Bob Dylan.
Well, it's like with Dylan, it's through phases.
Yes.
I mean, I loved Bringing It All Back Home and Highway 61 Revisited time.
Yeah.
And I couldn't care less whether you went electric or not, to be honest.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah,
You know.
some of the better songs arrived after that with the band.
Yeah. And Desire and Blood on the Tracks.
Yeah.
2 other fabulous albums. And,
Got both of those.
yeah. And the Rolling Thunder review, I just thought was inspirational. Just that kind of drive. But you don't have to like everything that anybody does.
No.
Well, in that case, I mean, what is it that sort of drew you into songwriting? Because you're a songwriter as well.
Not very often.
Not very often. Okay.
No.
Well, but it's almost like taking that forbidden step, isn't it? Sometimes.
Well, I think certainly the people I know who are really good songwriters, such as Ed and Rab Milks, would be inspired by something, and it would just come to them like that. And then obviously it gets worked on and revised. And there's such a wealth of great songs out there. I'm very picky about the songs I choose to sing. And I think generally they're good songs that I choose to sing. And I think, why do we need any more from me?
I don't know, it's from your perspective.
Well,
and there's a different kind of drive when you've written something yourself.
Yes.
There's like an inner need to share it with other people. It's not like, hey, look at me, you know, what I can do. It's like, this is something that means something to me.
Yeah.
And it adds a different depth, I feel, to a song.
Well, the one I like best that I've written is called The Posh Towny Ramblers. And I co-wrote this with a local comedian called Vic Barlow for one of the shows that happens in the villages here. The shows are fantastic, some real talent. And we always used to do a 10-minute comedy spot as part of the reviews. And at the time, Macclesfield Forest was being inundated with people from cities all over, and no respect for the countryside whatsoever. I come in a Range Rover so I can park on the corner. You know, my dog can crap anywhere it likes in the woods.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with me.
So it just pushes the bait to one side.
So we wrote the song. It was The Posh Towny Ramblers. I go where I like. I wear mountain boots and I ride mountain bikes.
Yeah.
We go to Mac Forest most every weekend, and abandon our car on a dangerous bend. And that kind of summed up what was going on at the time. So it was like Ed's songs in a way, but not quite of the same standard, that something had inspired that to happen.
And it resonates.
Yeah, and
with your community.
The last one was quite an amusing experience. I was looking at Facebook, as you do, and there was a picture of a distraught cowboy whose horse had left him, and he didn't know what to do. And the next post was about Tesla having self-driving cars.
Oh yes, well I've heard the song, I like the song, yeah.
So I wrote the song, which was basically "My Goddamn Truck Has Left Me."
Yeah, well I thought it was great because it's like a love song, you know, you know, my baby left me, but it's a
well. Some people have started singing that one, so I'm quite pleased with that.
But there's nothing wrong with writing songs.
No, nothing at all.
Yeah.
It's got to be done, otherwise there wouldn't be any.
That's right. And I also think this thing of, you know, like this is a club and we only have like a specific kind of song, or you know, it's the potpourri of a folk night that I like now. You know, that you can get everything.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
Even Nick Kershaw songs.
No. No, I mean, I agree with you. The little sing-around I organised were very Catholic tastes.
Yeah.
And we allow anybody, provided they don't plug in and they don't use a microphone, because I think that detracts from the ability of the audience to participate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky. I've got a loud enough voice. Yeah. But if you're in like a hall, it's like a PA system's necessary, you know, and wear and tear if somebody's like touring all the time.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Just as an aside to that, in the Marsden Rattlers days, we did a concert at Newcastle City Hall with Bob Davenport, and Bob refused to use a microphone.
I can imagine that. Yeah.
And he could still be heard perfectly at the back of the room.
I remember my sister was sitting next to him one time and she didn't know who he was, and I think it was Jimmy Irvin said like, "Now we're going to have a song from Bob Davenport," and he started and she like screamed, she jumped, "Look!" What was that? Because I mean he was loud. Very loud, but great singer and a wealth of material.
Yes.
And you had no qualms about singing Love Potion Number 9 or you know whatever occurred to him at the time.
He was introducing the Sunderland Folk Festival, and nobody knew who the headline act was on the Saturday night. And he said, "Folk music to me is the music the people sing in pubs, and folks are singing. Yeah. So please welcome the Kinks."
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I interviewed Jimmy Irvin, and it turned into like a little booklet. He called it, was it "Run There and Hurry Back"? You know, and he talked about the Kinks and that time and how wonderful Ray Davies was and bought everybody a drink and like a lot of bonhomie. You know, with it. So.
Yeah, we all went back to, it was Annabelle's nightclub in Sunderland after the show.
Yeah, classy.
Well, and I remember that night was the night that Desmond Dekker and the Aces released the Israelites, and they played it every other song for the whole night.
Yeah.
I still love it.
Oh, yeah.
But as you mentioned, Ray Davies was very entertaining and quite humble, buying people drinks and sitting chatting at the bar.
Yeah. I mean, I know from the videos you posted that you've got quite an affinity with Orkney Folk Festival as well.
Well, we actually went for the first time this year. I've got an indirect affiliation.
Because Ed was asking about like your Scottish connections as well.
Well, for many years, the Marsden Rattlers were the resident Ceilidh band at Blairgowrie and then at Dr. Mukti Festival.
Right.
And so we were probably for a running period of 15 or 16 years. We were the resident band every year and used to run sessions in the pubs as well. and participate in the concerts. And the nice thing about those festivals, which were basically organised by Jimmy Hutchison and Pete Shepherd, nobody got paid.
Right.
Nobody at all. If you were travelling a distance, you got your expenses. Somebody would put you up in a house and would provide you with a place to stay.
Yeah.
And you'd get vouchers for a restaurant for a lunch.
Wow.
And that was it. So it was a time of great equality at the festival. And we thoroughly enjoyed those. You know, there was such a great atmosphere. Except you had to camp in a muddy field.
Let it go! Let it go. Okay, well, you've mentioned it briefly, but talk about the Leather Smithy. When does it run and when is it on?
We run once a month sessions. The Leather Smithy is a pub in the forest in Macclesfield, about a mile from where I live. And basically, we were there one Christmas Eve, some of us locals, and I was asked to sing a few songs, and there was a guy playing the saxophone, another fella playing lovely jazz guitar. And the landlord said, "Oh, just what I wanted, would you run a folk night here?" And I said, "It's a bit far out, John, I don't know if it'll work. But okay, I'll give it a go. We'll start in February." So I thought, I don't know how many people are going to come. I rang round, and there was 40 people turned up. And he was a bit miffed because he didn't have enough staff on to deal with it. I said, well,
only in England.
Yeah,
oh,
I
there's
thought
too many
the pub
people
was run to sell beer and make a profit, so more people there, the better. Okay. Anyway, it was nice. We just had the informal sing around in a circle around the room. Everybody was told, like Jim Irvin did, shut up when anybody's singing. By your route. I've only had to throw 2 people out. And so that started up with some people I knew quite well and some I didn't, who by word of mouth had started coming along. And the idea was to give people a platform to start singing. And then this crazy guy, Graham Bell, rang me up out of the blue and said, if I come to that, would I be allowed to sing a song? Yes, of course, Graham. So he introduced himself and we had a little chat. And he said, "Oh, I'm not musical. And I only sing songs I've written." I thought, what's this going to be like? So eventually he plucked up courage to sing "The Blue-Grey Bullock and the Battered Bollock," about an incident with a drover and a bullock in Hexham Mart. Hilarious, note perfect, beautifully so. Wow. And Graham now is one of the stalwarts who comes every month, and we see him quite regularly. And fortunately, he's written lots and lots of songs now.
Absolutely, I think he's an absolute marvel.
Yes.
Absolute marvel. I mean, we spent all day yesterday together, and it just comes up with songs that just make you guffaw, or make you sort of stop in your tracks and think. So yeah.
Well, his Banana Boat song is one of the classics. Away, oh, away, oh. Say it, set the dog off.
Even the dog knows it.
Yes. And I sang that at Costa del Folk this year. And people didn't know what was going to happen because it's very loud to start with. And then it twigged and everybody's joining in. It was great. Yeah,
very clever. Very clever way with words. Somebody else, I mean, apart from George Borowski, who actually, he comes from Manchester, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yes, he's got Polish sort of parents who...
yes, that's him.
I'm backtracking. But, I mean, somebody else that you're a big supporter of is Lisa Hill.
Mills.
Yes. Lisa Mills, yes.
Well, Lisa...
I'm going to kill that researcher, I tell you.
Lisa's a phenomenal talent, and we met her first time because she was coming here to learn 3 George Borofsky songs for her album Tempered in Fire, which was recorded with Andy Fairweather Lowe and various other excellent musicians. So while she was here, George introduced me. And I said, do you not fancy doing a little concert at the Village Hall in Langley while you're here? We'll pay something towards your airfare going home. She went, oh, why not? And we sold 70 tickets. And she got enough to pay the return flight to America, which didn't work out quite as well as planned because she got to the airport and the flight was cancelled. And I got a phone call from the pub saying, there's a lady here who was asking if you're about. And she'd gone to the pub in the village and asked them to ring me because she didn't know I'd get in touch. So she stayed with us for a few days and said, can I come back for a holiday? I love it here. And I said, yeah, of course you can. Except you have to do a concert at the Village Hall if you come here. So she did. And then I found out that she'd replaced Janis Joplin as the front singer of Big Brother and the Holding Company, which was pretty impressive when I looked at the TV programmes going back. And then George said, you know, she's just a phenomenal talent. If you listen to her, you can't tell whether she's a black blues singer, a white blues singer, a country and western singer, or what. She's unique. And has a voice that, like Bob Davenport, could shatter windows from a mile. So Lisa comes regularly. The last concert that she did here, I was playing support with George Borofsky and a couple of friends. And when I announced her, I said, where have you come from? And he said, give us a clue. And she said, well, last night I was headlining the Barcelona Blues Festival to 100,000 people in an open area. And tonight I'm playing to 150 people in Langley. And this is great.
Good attitude. A really good attitude.
Yeah.
Well, it's been absolutely fabulous, sort of like chatting with you. There's our mutual friend, Jonty.
Yes.
When he first saw me doing these, he says, there's somebody you've got to talk to, and that's like Nigel. Got to talk to Nigel. And then the thing happened.
Yes.
So I sort of, this is me like resuming doing these chats. And he's given me 2 questions.
Oh, yes.
I like that look on your face. Okay. And he said, what gig unexpectedly astounded you?
The first George Borofsky gig I went to.
Right.
I just went, wow.
Yeah. Right. Oh, well, what I will do is at the end of this, in the comments, I'll put like links to all of the people that were mentioned, or as many as I possibly can.
Right. Good
so
idea.
that kind of like puts in some kind of context.
No, I'm getting nervous about Jonty's second question.
Okay. And this is it. This is the question we've all been wanting to ask. Do you still have the sexier lambs by hand?
No. By sight.
Nigel, it's been such a pleasure.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank
Yes,
you.
it has.
Yeah, oh, thank you so much.
Could have gone on for hours.
Well, we'll have. We'll have last night and today.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers to one and all. Oh, that was great.
I hope you've got something you can
I use it
edit
all.
together there.
I use every last bit of it. Not not one for kind of like saying like I'll edit this bit out or that bit out or.
Well, you got